In the heart of Mexico, nestled within imposing walls and guarded by an army of officers, stood Puente Grande Prison, renowned as the most fortified stronghold in the country. But before we dive deeper into this gripping narrative, let me extend a warm welcome to the Untold Stories channel. Before we proceed, I encourage you to join our community by liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel. Now, let's uncover the captivating tale of El Chapo, the infamous drug lord, and his reign within these formidable walls. El Chapo, originally named Joaquín Archibaldo Guzmán Loera, the leader of the Sinaloa Cartel, the most powerful drug gang in the world, was no ordinary criminal. His empire stretched far and wide, built on a foundation of fear and corruption. Despite his arrest in 1993, El Chapo continued to operate his empire from inside the prison. Through bribery, he turned the prison into his kingdom, where he lived a life of luxury, indulging in alcohol, women, and all manner of comforts. He could even conduct gang activities from inside. His right-hand man, Damaso Lopez, who was the deputy chief of security, ensured his comfort and control within the prison walls, solidifying their bond of friendship. But El Chapo's ambitions extended beyond the prison walls. He pioneered a new method of drug trafficking through underground tunnels, revolutionizing the trade. During his time in prison, El Chapo and his gang revolutionized drug trafficking by digging tunnels from inside the prison to smuggle drugs into the United States. This allowed them to make millions of dollars every month without relying on traditional smuggling routes. 2001 escape. Despite calls for his extradition to the United States, Mexican authorities resisted, claiming they could handle their criminals. However, in 2001, the Mexican Supreme Court proposed a new law allowing the extradition of Mexican criminals to America, putting El Chapo in danger. Upon hearing this, he immediately began planning his escape from Puente Grande Prison. El Chapo bribed his assistant Damaso to help reduce the number of guards on the day of his escape, January 19, 2001. He also bribed a prison worker named Chito, responsible for laundry, to aid in his plan. On the escape day, Chito helped El Chapo hide in a laundry cart and pushed it past guards with reduced security. However, a tense moment occurred when the cart almost rolled backward, but Chito managed to prevent it. They reached a waiting car and drove out without being stopped or searched due to bribed guards. Despite the quick exposure of the escape, local police, mostly bribed by El Chapo, delayed pursuit, allowing him to get away. El Chapo was moved between multiple locations to avoid tracking, finally arriving in Mexico City. Surrounded by police, he was stressed until learning they were there for his protection, a plan orchestrated by corrupt police. This legendary escape made people view El Chapo as untouchable, despite significant pursuit efforts by Mexican authorities. Over 14 years, El Chapo remained free, expanding his empire and becoming the dominant force in the drug trade between Mexico and America. In 2014, Mexican intelligence, aided by an informant, hacked El Chapo's communication network, leading to his location in Sinaloa. However, El Chapo escaped through a tunnel cleverly hidden beneath a bathtub. El Chapo fled to Mazatlan, a coastal city, thinking he would remain undetected. But authorities, tracing his hacked communication, found him in a hotel named Miramar 5 days later, leading to his arrest in February 2014. Second arrest in Altiplano Prison 2014. After his second arrest in 2014, El Chapo was taken to the Altiplano Prison, known as the most fortified prison in Mexico. This was quite different from his first arrest in 1993 when the prison wasn't as heavily fortified. The Altiplano Prison resembled a military base, with numerous guards, watchtowers, and layers of reinforced walls. The outer wall of the prison was surrounded by watchtowers, each manned by armed guards with heavy weapons. The walls themselves were reinforced with layers of heavy concrete and were difficult to breach. Additionally, there were ditches and other fortifications to prevent external attacks. Inside the prison, there were even armored vehicles and anti-aircraft weapons to defend against potential threats. Communication networks were tightly controlled, making it difficult for inmates to coordinate any escape attempts. Moreover, guards were carefully selected to resist bribery, unlike in other prisons where El Chapo had previously escaped from. Despite housing some of Mexico's most dangerous criminals, including gang leaders and drug lords, no one had managed to escape from Altiplano Prison until El Chapo's arrival. The prison's security measures were so stringent that even El Chapo, with all his resources and connections, found it impossible to escape. His capture and subsequent imprisonment marked a significant victory for Mexican and American authorities in the fight against organized crime. escape from Altiplano Prison. As soon as El Chapo found himself inside the prison, thoughts of escape consumed his mind. With the constant threat of extradition looming over him, he knew he had to act quickly. Since mobile phones didn't work inside the prison, he relied on his lawyer Oscar Lopez and his third wife, Emma Coronel, as the only conduits to the outside world. Coordinating with his wife, El Chapo devised a plan to communicate with his children and trusted ally, Damaso Lopez, who had risen through the ranks to become his right-hand man. Despite being blamed and fired after El Chapo's previous escape, Damaso remained loyal, and together, they plotted their leader's next breakout. Inside the prison, El Chapo's movements were restricted, with only 1 hour of outdoor time permitted each day. Under constant surveillance, he knew that escape would be nearly impossible. Yet, his determination drove him forward, and he hatched a daring plan involving an underground tunnel. The first step of the plan involved acquiring a piece of land near the prison where they could dig the tunnel without drawing suspicion. After an exhaustive search, they found an empty construction site about 1.5 kilometers away. With the land secured, they began the arduous task of tunneling towards the prison. To pinpoint the exact location of El Chapo's cell and the small space behind the shower wall where the tunnel exit would be, they devised a clever solution. They smuggled a GPS device to him inside a watch, allowing his accomplices to identify the precise location of the tunnel's endpoint. The tunnel construction was an engineering marvel, requiring a team of skilled workers. Ventilation pipes were laid, lighting was installed, and an air pumping machine and electricity generator were hidden at the entrance. Despite the immense scale of the operation, they managed to keep it all hidden from prying eyes and disposing of tons of sand and materials without detection. Inside the tunnel, the scene was equally impressive. Wooden supports lined the walls and thousands of light bulbs illuminated the way. Despite the challenges and risks involved, El Chapo's gang spared no effort in ensuring the success of their audacious escape plan. Throughout the digging process, El Chapo anxiously awaited news from his men, fearing extradition to America. When informed that the tunnel was nearly complete, he chose July 4, 2015, as the date of his escape to symbolically insult America on its Independence Day. However, due to delays in tunnel completion, the operation was postponed to July 11, 2015. On the night of his escape, El Chapo was captured on surveillance cameras in his cell, watching a comedy series on his tablet. At 8:10 p.m., he made his move, disappearing into the tunnel through a hidden opening in the shower space. Descending a ladder, he met with his wife's brother, who directed him to a cart inside the tunnel. El Chapo swiftly drove the cart along the tunnel to the other side, where a quad bike awaited him. Within 40 minutes of his disappearance, guards discovered the escape route, but it was too late. El Chapo boarded a waiting truck, which transported him to the town of San Juan. From there, he flew by private jet to one of his highly fortified safe houses in the mountains of Sinaloa, known as the Sky. However, El Chapo's brazen escape caused embarrassment for Mexican authorities, who had touted his previous arrest as a significant victory in the war against drugs. Despite their efforts to track him down, El Chapo continued to evade capture, moving from city to city to maintain control over his gang. El Chapo's escape caused a huge embarrassment for Mexican authorities, who had celebrated his arrest just a year prior as a major victory against crime and drugs. Despite the massive resources dedicated to capturing him, El Chapo continued to move around, visiting gang headquarters and issuing orders which made him easier to track. Third-time arrestment. Mexican intelligence, aided by American technology, managed to locate a house in Los Mochis suspected of housing El Chapo. They monitored the location and intercepted communications, identifying a nickname Grandma likely referring to El Chapo. When a convoy arrived at the house, suspicions grew stronger. On January 8, 2016, Mexican forces stormed the house, engaging in a violent conflict with El Chapo's followers. El Chapo escaped through an underground tunnel while his men fought the special forces. He and an assistant stole a passing car to flee the area. However, about 20 kilometers away, federal police officers arrested El Chapo and his assistant at a checkpoint. Despite attempting to bribe the officers, they refused and called for backup. El Chapo's men mobilized for a rescue attempt, but they were outnumbered by soldiers from the army and special forces who quickly secured the area. After the failed escape attempt from the motel, El Chapo found himself surrounded by soldiers and was arrested for the third time. He was taken back to the Altiplano Prison, where he was under heavy surveillance to prevent any further escape attempts. Despite this, El Chapo began plotting another escape and reached out to his gang for help. They started planning another tunnel escape, mirroring their previous methods. Meanwhile, Mexican authorities were working on extraditing El Chapo to the United States, believing it to be the only solution to prevent further escapes. However, the extradition process faced delays, including the assassination of the judge handling the case in October 2016. Eventually, in January 2017, El Chapo was suddenly transferred to a helicopter, then to a plane bound for New York. Arriving in New York, El Chapo was bewildered and asked where he was. He was informed that he was in New York City. This marked the beginning of his trial in the United States, which lasted for an extended period, featuring numerous details, witnesses, and testimonies. In 2019, El Chapo was sentenced to life imprisonment plus an additional 30 years. Currently, El Chapo resides in a DX Florence Supermax, a highly secure prison in Colorado, USA. This facility is renowned for housing extremely dangerous inmates in solitary confinement, with limited interaction even with guards. El Chapo spends 23 hours a day in his cell, allowed only 1 hour for indoor activities under strict surveillance. Despite his previous escapes and immense power, El Chapo now faces the reality of life behind bars. While he may have considered escape plans, the realization of his diminished influence and confinement likely weighs heavily on him. Thus concludes the tale of one of the most notorious drug lords in history, now serving out his sentence far from the heights of his former power. So thank you for joining us on this journey through the dramatic life of El Chapo, one of the most infamous drug lords in history. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the Untold Stories channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.